What if the most famous home in the world was once a perfectly ordinary townhouse? What if the building that has housed every British monarch for nearly 2 centuries started life as a private residence for a duke who couldn't afford to finish it? What if behind those famous gates and that iconic balcony lies a history of scandal, extravagance, architectural disaster, and royal drama that most people never hear about? This is Buckingham Palace, and the real story is far more extraordinary than the postcard. Buckingham House. The modest beginning. The year is 1703. The land on which Buckingham Palace now stands is the western edge of St James's Park, a pleasant semi-rural location on the outskirts of London, far enough from the city's noise and smell to feel almost like the countryside. On this land, a relatively modest red brick townhouse is built for John Sheffield, the Duke of Buckingham and Norman Bay. It is a handsome building by the standards of its time, 3 stories, a central block with flanking wings, a garden stretching south toward the park, but it is emphatically not a palace. It is a large private residence for a wealthy nobleman who wants to live in comfortable proximity to the royal court at nearby St James's Palace. The Duke of Buckingham is pleased with his house. He writes about it with evident satisfaction, describing the view across St James's Park, the fresh air, the gardens. He has no idea that within 2 centuries his modest townhouse will be the most recognisable building on earth. The King's Purchase. A royal acquisition in 1762. King George III, newly married to Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, decides he needs a private family residence in London. The official royal residence, St James's Palace, is grand and ceremonial, but hardly comfortable for a young family. George wants somewhere quieter, somewhere more private. He buys Buckingham House for 28 Zerlosen, a considerable sum, but not an extravagant one for a royal purchase. He does not intend to make it a palace. He calls it simply the Queen's House, a private home for his wife and the growing royal family. And for the next 60 years, that is exactly what it is. 14 of George III and Charlotte's 15 children are born here. It is a genuinely domestic royal residence. Cluttered, warm, filled with children and dogs, and the organised chaos of a large family, about as far from the formal grandeur of the modern palace as it is possible to imagine. The transformation is still to come, and when it comes, it will be spectacular, controversial, and almost ruinously expensive. The Prince Regent and John Nash, a vision of grandeur. In 1820, George III dies, and his son, the Prince Regent, long the de facto ruler during his father's madness, becomes King George IV. And George IV has ambitions for Buckingham House that go far beyond anything his father imagined. George IV is the most extravagant monarch Britain has produced since Charles Civil. He has already spent a fortune transforming the Royal Pavilion at Brighton into an extraordinary oriental fantasy of domes and minarets. He has rebuilt Carlton House into one of the grandest private palaces in Europe. And now he turns his attention to the Queen's House. He commissions John Nash, his favourite architect, the man responsible for Regent Street and much of the elegant Regency face of central London. To transform Buckingham House into a palace worthy of the most powerful monarchy in the world. Nash's vision is extraordinary. A grand new palace of Bath stone and marble, a central block with a magnificent state entrance, 2 sweeping wings extending north and south to enclose a grand forecourt, a triumphal arch, the Marble Arch, at the main entrance, modelled on the Arch of Constantine in Rome. The budget is set at a 252 zerosen. The final cost will be more than 3 times that figure, and the results, as we are about to see, will be deeply controversial. Scandal, cost, and the Marble Arch problem. The construction of the new palace is plagued by problems from the beginning. Nash's design keeps changing. Costs spiral out of control. Parliament, increasingly alarmed by the escalating expense, demands explanations. A select committee investigation finds evidence of financial irregularities. Nash is accused of corrupt dealings with contractors and profiting personally from the construction. When George IV dies in 1830, the palace is still not finished. The new king, William IV, has no particular affection for Buckingham Palace and even suggests it might be converted into the new Houses of Parliament after the old Westminster building burns down. Parliament declines the offer. Nash is dismissed. A new architect, Edward Blore, is brought in to complete the work at reduced cost. Blore makes a discovery that causes genuine architectural embarrassment. The triumphal Marble Arch, Nash's grand centrepiece, is too narrow. The state coach cannot fit through it. It is quietly dismantled and moved to the northeast corner of Hyde Park, where it still stands today. One of London's most puzzling landmarks, a triumphal arch leading to nothing in particular. Queen Victoria. The first true palace resident, it is Queen Victoria who transforms Buckingham Palace from an unfinished building site into the functioning royal headquarters it becomes. When Victoria comes to the throne in June 1837, at just 18 years old, she is the first monarch to actually take up residence in the palace as the official royal home. And she immediately identifies a problem. The palace is too small. Victoria and Prince Albert, whom she marries in 1840, have 9 children. The household staff alone numbers hundreds. There is simply not enough room. In 1847, the solution is found. Edward Blore is commissioned to add a 4th wing to the palace, closing off the forecourt entirely and creating the famous East Facade that faces the mall today. To pay for it, the Royal Pavilion at Brighton, George IV's Oriental fantasy, is sold. The Marble Arch, already relocated, loses its original context entirely. The new East Wing gives the palace the recognisable silhouette we know today. But Blore's facade is not universally admired. Critics find it plain, even dull, compared to the grandeur of Nash's original vision. The facade we see today is actually not even Blore's original design. It is a further remodelling carried out in 1913 by Sir Aston Webb, who replaced the original Portland stone facing with the current pale grey cane stone in just 13 weeks. 13 weeks to give the world's most famous building its most recognisable face. The most dramatic test of Buckingham Palace comes not from architectural controversy or royal extravagance, but from the German Luftwaffe. During the Blitz of 1940, Buckingham Palace is bombed 9 times. 9 times. German bombers target the palace deliberately, understanding its symbolic importance to British morale. On the 13th of September 1940, 2 bombs fall directly into the palace quadrangle while King George VI and Queen Elizabeth are in residence. The royal chapel is destroyed. Windows are blown out across the building. The bomb craters in the forecourt are clearly visible. Queen Elizabeth's response, delivered with characteristic composure, becomes one of the most famous quotes of the entire war. She says she is glad the palace has been bombed, because now she can look the East End in the face. London's most bombed and most devastated communities, the working class East End, have been suffering the Blitz for weeks. The royal family's shared experience of bombing, however different in scale, matters enormously to public morale. The royal family's refusal to leave London during the Blitz, their daily visits to bombed communities, their presence at the palace, their visible sharing of the national experience, is one of the most significant factors in maintaining British civilian morale through the darkest period of the war. The famous balcony, where history is made, no feature of Buckingham Palace is more iconic or more historically significant than the balcony, added in 1853 as a private viewing platform for the royal family to watch military parades. It becomes within decades the most recognisable spot in Britain. It is on this balcony that generations of royal family moments are played out before the nation. Victory celebrations, royal weddings, coronation days, jubilees. The balcony appearance has become the punctuation mark of British national life. The moment when a private royal event becomes a public one. When the family inside the palace turns to face the people outside the gates. Perhaps the most extraordinary balcony moment in the palace's history comes on the 8th of May 1945, VE Day, the end of the war in Europe. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth appear on the balcony to a crowd of perhaps 1 million people stretching from the palace gates down the Mall and beyond. The noise is described by eyewitnesses as something physical, a wall of sound that could be felt as much as heard. Winston Churchill, the architect of victory, appears beside them. The crowd erupts again. From a modest red brick townhouse built for a duke in 1703, to the most photographed building in the world, from a private family home bought by a thrifty king for the 28 Zalosen, to a palace of 775 rooms, 188 staff bedrooms, 92 offices, 78 bathrooms, and 19 staterooms spread across 77,000 square meters. From a building so unfinished that its triumphal arch had to be moved because the royal coach wouldn't fit through it, to a symbol so powerful that Nazi Germany targeted it with bombs specifically to break British morale. Buckingham Palace is not just a building. It is 300 years of British history made physical. Every room, every facade, every balcony appearance carries the weight of the nation's story inside it. And somewhere behind those famous gates right now, history is still being made. If this is the kind of story that makes you see familiar things in a completely new way, subscribe, because we are just getting started.